name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have my February wrap-up. So in the month of February, I did read 7 things, and we're basically gonna jump right on into that because I'm just super excited for some of these. At the end of January, I did finish A Darker Shade of Magic. So the first thing that I ended up reading in February were the next 2 books in the series. We did have A Gathering of Shadows, as well as A Conjuring of Light. And A Gathering of Shadows did fulfill the prompt to read a book that had over 10,000 ratings in Goodreads. As you guys will remember, I actually had my son pick out the books I read in February, so he had a couple different options, and I was super happy that he did end up picking A Gathering of Shadows, because that did mean that I was able to basically marathon the whole series. As soon as I finished A Darker Shade of Magic at the very end of January, the first thing that I picked up in February was A Gathering of Shadows, and as soon as I finished that, I read A Conjuring of Light. I gave both of these books 5 stars. I really enjoyed the fact that the first book in this series basically was a standalone book. We didn't really have any major cliffhangers, and the story was a completed story arc. I still loved the characters, and so like obviously I wanted more in the series, but I wouldn't have been mad if that first book didn't continue. Because the first book ended on such a like completed story, the second one almost felt like it could have been a brand new series, I guess. We did have Lila and Kel, who we definitely got to know in the first book of the series, so we didn't get too much backstory on them for that here, but we also were introduced to a couple new characters. This one had more of a like game tournament setup, dealing with magic powers and people from other countries, I'm pretty sure it is, because I'm pretty sure where they are is like a country, and then I had other people from other countries. I don't fully know because of, you know, it's not our world. I don't even know if they call it countries or not, but I really enjoyed that setup. It did start off a little bit slower at the beginning because we weren't fully in the game tournament setting yet, but I really did enjoy the entire book of this, and this one really set up well for the third one. Now this third one was a wild ride. Again, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, but there was so much going on. We had a lot of the same characters as book 2, and these ones do have multiple like new main characters, including Lila and Kel, obviously, and I really did enjoy actually getting to know these new characters and their points of view and everything. Like, it wasn't like I was mad that we didn't get as much Lila and Kel, because we still got them, but we also got, you know, to broaden our world with the new characters. I can't really go into this book at all, because you do need to read this one. These two definitely felt more of like a sort of duology, where there was an arc that concluded in the second book, but like the overall arc definitely is for both books, and I was so glad I got to read them back to back. I also just discovered like yesterday that V.E. Schwab is planning on writing a new trilogy in this world. It's gonna have new main characters, but we are gonna get to see some of our, you know, favorites again, and I'm very excited for that. So yes, these were the first 2 books I read in February. I can't gush on them enough, but I don't want to spoil anything, because you definitely do need to read the first one and then the second one before you get to the third. These ones fit together just like perfectly. The next book I read was Otaku by Chris Kluwe. This one was an e-arc that I received from NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. This one I ended up giving a 1 star because I did DNF it at around 18%. This is a book that has recently come out on March 3rd, so if you are not put off by the sort of things I'm going to be saying, you can definitely check it out. The cover is gorgeous. Like, I was really hoping for more for this one, but it's also billed as sort of for people that liked Ready Player One, and I absolutely loved that one. So I don't know if it was partially that I had high expectations, but it just really didn't hit the mark for me. So in this one, our author is writing about a female main character. I don't always enjoy when male authors write female characters. I did think he was writing about a guy for most of what I was reading, until we exit the virtual reality world and come into the actual main world, and you realize that she's a girl, which doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. However, the part that I did sort of enjoy was in the virtual reality world, and from other reviews, as the book goes on, that's not the main point of the book. It appears that that is partially what the book is about, but a lot of the book takes place in the real world, which I was not as much of a fan of. He also did start off the book pretty well with like a dungeon-y sort of battle. However, I think because he's a former NFL player, he focused a lot on like the science aspect of action and activities. So instead of just talking about what was happening in the fight, he focused a lot on like oxygen debt and the muscles, and it was a little bit too much technical side for me, and it definitely took me out of what I thought was otherwise a pretty good opening scene. But then, like I said, they exit the virtual reality world, and I can't really spoil too much for you, but everything after that was info dumping and very, very preachy about being a woman in a man's world. And I am a woman. I sort of understand where he was coming from, but because it was a man writing it and it was very, very trying to hit you over the head with her explaining how this world works to her brother, who, you know, is her brother. He's been there for, I think it was like 17 years. He should hopefully know some of this already. It felt very info dumpy, very preachy, very boring, and I could not get through it. I had other books that I really wanted to read, and so, like I said, I DNF'd it. I gave it 1 star. I think this book might be for some other people, but it was definitely not something that I could ever see myself picking up again. Next, I read The Past and Other Things That Should Stay Buried by Sean David Hutchinson. This book fulfilled the prompt to read a book with multiple points of view. So this book I gave a 3.5 stars. I've only read one other book by Sean David Hutchinson so far, and that was At the Edge of the Universe. That one I gave a full 5 stars to because I was really, really enjoying this sort of speculative sci-fi mystery element. This one definitely has another sort of speculative weirdness element, but it took a little bit longer to really get going into the story for me. In this one, our main character Dino had a falling out with his best friend July last year, and we start off at the fact that she has died from like a brain aneurysm, and he's trying to come to terms with the fact that this was somebody who was best friends with him for like his entire life, and over 1 year they basically didn't talk at all, and now she's gone. But he works in his family's mortuary, and when he goes down to sort of like look at her, fix her makeup for her funeral the next day, she wakes up. And so we have 2 characters, 2 points of view. We have Dino and July, and it's all basically about friendship and what it means to fall in and out of friendship. And like I said, it started off a little bit slow, but eventually it got to the point where I was just fully immersed in the story, and I didn't like even think about putting it down. It was very, very good, but also very, very unique. I don't think I've really read any other book that was very, very focused, I'm saying very a lot, on the friendship element and not like a romance or anything like that. This was definitely about their friendship. And so I gave this a 3.5 stars because of the fact that it wasn't a full 4 or 5 stars for me, but I really did enjoy sort of what the author was trying to say about friendships in here, and I do think it is a very unique read, and people should definitely pick it up. Then I read Life is Strange Dust by Emma Vicelli, and this fulfilled the prompt to read a book from the bottom shelf of your bookcase. This was a really easy one for me because the bottom 2 shelves of basically all of my bookcases are my TBR books. So this one here, I gave a 3 stars. I have played Life is Strange before in the game, and this book follows what happens after the game if you pick a certain ending. When I played the game, did not pick this ending, so I actually was very interested and intrigued to see what they were gonna do after, because this is not something that I personally would have picked. It did start off pretty well, and it does deal with Max and Chloe and sort of the aftermath of what happened in the game, but also Max is starting to have jumps in time that she's not doing on purpose, and so it's dealing also with like the power and the mechanic of the game, but in a graphic novel form. The reason I gave this a 3 stars, even though the art, I kicked the tripod. Even though the art style is really, really good, like I really enjoyed the way the characters and the art and the color look in here. It is so nice and clean. But I feel like the story that they were trying to tell didn't lend itself very well to a graphic novel. There were certain parts that the characters would say something like, oh, something back there happened, and I would go back a couple pages to see if it was something that I was supposed to notice in the pictures, and there were certain times where things like that happened where they would say something, but when I went back, I didn't see anything that would lend itself to that, so I don't know if that was just a me thing or if it was the format for this is not as good as the video game was. But also, it got a little bit weird near the end, and it just, I don't know how to describe it. I do definitely need to read more in this series to see if maybe they explain a little bit better, but it just sort of took the power that Max had and changed it around in such a way that I don't know what they're doing with this story. I don't know where they're going next with it, and so because of that, I'm confused. And because of that, I only gave it a 3 stars. Next, I read Dragon Age Tevinter Nights. This is edited by Patrick Weeks. This is another e-arc that I received from NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. This one will be coming out on March 10th, so if you're interested, just keep that in mind. It's going to be coming up soon. This I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. I am completely obsessed with BioWare in general, so like Dragon Age, Mass Effect, those kind of RPG games where you get to really immerse yourself in the story and make connections to characters. And this is a collection of short stories that sort of takes place, as far as my understanding, between Dragon Age Inquisition and the 4th upcoming Dragon Age game that we don't really know too much about, except for I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be set in Tevinter, just like all of these stories were. So this is a collection of 15 stories, and I really, really enjoyed the ones that were more horror-y based. That's what I sort of expect with some of the bad characters, the bad guys in the Dragon Age games, and so I was definitely expecting that. There were also some stories that had like twists, and a lot of these stories, you do not want to read them unless you have finished Dragon Age Inquisition, because there are some spoilers in there, and it's also setting up for the next game, so there's a lot of things to speculate. I have no idea how these stories are going to fit into the next game or anything like that. I don't usually actually read the books that go with the video games I like. I did read Dragon Age Asunder before Dragon Age Inquisition because there was a main character in that book that then, you know, was in Dragon Age Inquisition. And so the whole time I'm speculating, are we gonna find some of these people in the game? Are the events that are sort of happening gonna be talked about again? I don't know, but the writing style for a lot of these was so good. I did give quite a few stories 4 or 5 stars. There were a few that got a 3, but nothing less than a 3. And just the fact that after the 4th story in this book, I had to start a new playthrough of Dragon Age Inquisition, and I'm like 40 something, almost 50 hours in after like a week. Yeah, I had to give this book 5 out of 5 stars. And then the last book was Romanov by Nadine Brandes, and this fulfilled the prompt to read a Shelf Love Crate Book of the Month, and that was from anywhere from 2017 to 2020. That's just because that's how long they've been in business. This is another book that I DNF'd, and I believe it was like 37 or 38%. So this, from what I understand, from other people talking about it, from the summary on the book, was an Anastasia sort of retelling with magic. There's barely any magic mention in the 38% that I read, and I do know some stuff about Romanov history, and basically I got through more than a third of the book. I got through more than 100 pages of the book, which is usually, if I don't like something, that's like my cutoff for DNFing. And it was just still talking about them in exile, and I was super bored. I kept waiting for, you know, something big to happen, and it never did. It was just day-to-day life, and I was expecting magic or romance or murder, like something, and I didn't get it. So I did take a look at some of the other reviews, and it does appear that it actually takes at least 30 to 40 more pages from where I was to even get to actual action. And I do believe this is something that if I wasn't reading it like the last couple days of the month, I probably could have powered through and finished the book. So for this one here, even though it's a DNF and I usually only give DNFs 1 star, I did decide to give this a 2 star because the writing style was not bad. And I gave a book in January a 2 stars because I got through it. And that one was worse than this. Like, it was horrible. So I want to like let people know, I guess, this probably is for some people. It just wasn't for me. It is a DNF. It is a 2 star. For me personally, the writing was not bad. I really do wish there was more in this book. More romance or more magic or more murder and killing people. Just something more than just them living in exile and their day-to-day life. Like, they talked about what they ate for breakfast. They talked about them going out to the garden. Like, it was very repetitive and very slow. And that is everything that I read or tried to read in February. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I do have videos up on Mondays and Thursdays, so I will see you then. Bye!